What's going on, y'all? It's MJ back with another album review. This is album review number 352, and today I got Dark Times by Vince Staples for y'all. This is an album that came out on May 24th, 2024, so just a little bit over a year and a half ago. It's a total of 13 tracks, 10 songs, and 3 interludes. It goes over different themes of depression, trauma, isolation, survival, and honesty that come along with coming up in not so good part of town and being able to break free from it, as we see throughout this project. As y'all know, before we get into the actual music part of the review, we got to do an album cover review. Today, I'm gonna give this one a 1 out of 10. I don't really like how you can barely see the text. I just don't think it's very innovative. Slapping the parental advisory in the corner. I don't want to say lazy. I'll just say not innovative. You know what? I'm gonna say it. I think it's a little lazy, if I'm gonna be honest. You could portray Dark Times a little bit better in an album cover. The actual music makes up for the album cover, so we're not gonna get too caught up on it. So the first track of the album is actually an interlude called Close Your Eyes and Swing. Smooth interlude that is about 45 seconds long, bringing you into this project. Not really too hard hitting, prepares you for the different relatable ideas that he's gonna go over throughout this project. Hopping into the second track, our first song of the project, Black and Blue. I believe this to be a perfect song. I think it's a very heartfelt, smooth delivery, brings me back to listen to it more and more, and I could see this very well being in my rotation consistently in terms of hip hop. The third track in this album is Government Cheese, and I believe it to be an amazing song. It's a heartfelt, smooth delivery, just like the last one, and it goes into these ideas of no matter how hard it gets in life, you just have to remember to smile, and always talks about that. It's talking about living life, smiling. I don't want to say fully positive, but it's a little shine of light in this darker time too. This darker time in the album before we get to this freedom from these dark times. Him going into this idea of positivity brings a nice light and enhances and makes the listening experience a little bit more palatable for the listener. The next track is Children's Song, and I still think this song is great. The lyrics and the storytelling were not as strong as the prior tracks. The delivery was still there though, production was still there. I'm just gonna have to dock down a couple points because I thought that the tracks before it were in a little bit of a different league than this track right here. I think that Shame on the Devil is a great track. It's almost the reverse of the prior track. Great storytelling, great lyrics. The production and the actual delivery can be a little bit slow for me at points, bringing me out of the song, and that's why I had to bring it down a couple points. Still a great song, just not as good as the first few tracks that we had heard, in my opinion. Track number 6 is Etouffee, and it's the best track on this album. A perfect song. And the thing about it is, actually, Etouffee from French translates as smothered, and it talks about these ideas of him being smothered by different pressures and anxieties of his upbringing. But then it almost has this breaking out fun ending that I really enjoyed. I didn't think it steered off too much from the actual music, and it allowed for this fun, vibrant ending to probably one of the darker tracks on the album. But the production and delivery, and then matched with the storytelling, is just chef's kiss. The 7th track is an interlude called Liars that actually dives into the different ideas of honesty that were one of the themes of this album. Self-deception can be used as a form of coping when you're in these dark times that Vince Staples is going through in the writing of this album. But then it also dives into the different things of manipulation, such as once your name gets out there in the world, it can be manipulated and people can lie on it. Opinions hold more weight than actual reality. The interludes on this album were placed perfectly, connected great messages to the actual themes of the overall project. Coming in as the 8th track is a song, Justin, and it's one of my favorites on the project. I think it's an amazing song, and it dives into the idea of someone that's a younger kid growing up in these ravished and violent environments. It has the production and the delivery that's this darker, mellow tone that matches the vibe of the song. And that's the one thing that I find throughout this project, is that the production and the storytelling go hand in hand. It's never a thing where the production or the storytelling seems like an outlier. There's only a few parts where I think that certain songs might be just like a little too slow for me. Outside of that, the actual vibes are matched perfectly by the storytelling and the production. Our 9th track, Radio, is a great song. It dives into the idea that we went over in the interlude, Liars. Once your name makes it to the radio, there's different things that can be lied on, different things that can be expected of you, different rumors. And even though you kind of quote unquote made it, it brings on different pressures that might be even heavier than the ones of growing up in a ravished and violent environment, such as is what Vince Staples is rapping about throughout the earlier part of this project. The 10th track, I think, is a great song called Nothing Matters. Once you make it, that doesn't fix everything. There's internal problems that you're dealing with, and you can't fix it by self-deception as a cope, and you can't fix it just by getting money and fame. There's certain things that you just have to sit back on and reflect. You have to look at them in the face and you have to attack them head on. There's no way to get around them, and that's what Nothing Matters is talking about. It's talking about how there's no amount of fame or money can mask over these problems. The 11th track on this project, Little Homies, I think is a great song, but I do think it's the weakest of the bunch. I thought the first half just kind of stood out as an outlier from the rest of this project. Wasn't a big fan of it. The 12th track on this album is an amazing song called Freeman, and it goes into the idea of once you've made it out of this community, you still hold this invisible weight of the people that are still in the community that you love, such as family and friends. And even though you made it out, you still hold that weight of the people that are in there, and you're responsible. You have a responsibility for them. That's the whole thing of Freeman, is you're never really free. You have these invisible chains that still are holding you down. The last track of this project is an outro interlude that kind of sees Vince just facing the problems that he has, not trying to dodge and cope around them, just facing them head on and dealing with them. And that's the whole buildup of this album. You kind of see a shift from him trying to lie and deceive himself, and this form of self-deception, and certain things will get these problems to go away from him, such as money and fame and making it to the radio and all these different things. But the only thing that he really sees that can face these problems is himself. And you have to, that goes for a lot of things in life. That's the bigger theme of this album. And it's so great because you can apply it to a lot of areas in life. If you're facing a problem, you gotta face it head on. Anything that seems like it's an easy way out is probably not gonna work out in the end. A lot of life is not easy. Life's gonna give you challenges, and you gotta attack them head on. You gotta sit back and reflect. You're living life, like live life. Times can be hard, but there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And in these dark times of an album, there's a light at the end, it seems. It seems as he kind of has a coming of age throughout this whole project. I had a 3.7 out of 5 that then multiplied by 2, which gives me a 7.4 out of 10. That's an A rating for this album. Would definitely recommend to listen. And if there's any other albums that you guys want me to listen to, you know what to do. Comment them down below. I'll make sure and try and get to them. I'll also leave my album of the year in the description. You guys can directly recommend albums to me. That's the easiest way to do so that I can actually see them. Until next time, check out my socials. I put them right here. I'll catch y'all in the next one. God bless. Godspeed. Peace.